What's up, duelists? Today I'm bringing back a classic, the Quick Draw Relinquished deck. This is a fan favorite deck and a personal favorite deck of mine. It is super fun to play, and it's very difficult to find the right balance of monsters to play to make it consistent enough. I've got a replay for you guys that can show off what this deck is capable of, but let's talk about some of the stuff that's happening here before we get into the replay. First things first, you got Quick Draw Dandy Debris. That's like pretty straightforward. You guys have played it before in Quick Draw decks in the past. You've got Card Trooper. Card Trooper is just a way to find access to Dandelion. He also fuels your Preparation of Rites and your triple Pot of Avarice. So the main point of this deck is to abuse Preparation of Rites and Pot of Avarice as straight up Pot of Greeds in the middle of the late game. You need to mill cards with Card Trooper and Raikou, Lila, and Charge as well to sort of get your Black Illusion Ritual in the graveyard or your monsters in the graveyard for Pot of Avarice. Of course, you have good cards to mill in Dandelion as well as the Djinn. The Djinn is really strong because if you can use Relinquished with the Djinn backed up, it's kind of a soft lock. It's really difficult for a lot of decks to get over that without specifically Book of Moon or Brain Control. Yeah, of course, a lot of decks do play those cards, but you get the idea. I mean, if they don't have it, they don't have it, and they're going to immediately lose. Raikou Caius, the classics. Chaos Sorcerer, just because you can. There's Double Honest in this list. The reason there's Double Honest is I noticed that there can be some moments where you have to, like, turn 1 normal summon Lila, or turn 1 normal summon Manju, and you can't really afford to lose that sort of monster in play because you might need it for tribute fodder the next turn. So I use Double Honest as sort of our trap card of choice. It's nice because it's a monster that you can get back with Drill Warrior. It can also pump up your Ancient Fairy Dragon off of Debris Dragon in the middle to late game. And then it's also something you can tribute for Relinquish, but it's a piece of interaction. I had Book of Moon in the slot before, but I found that Honest was just a little bit better, and it filled multiple different roles that I really liked. Of course, Gore's Trag to stay alive, Sangan, which searches just about everything you could possibly want in this deck. Either Relinquished, or the Djinn, or the Debris Dragon, Dandelion stuff, or Card Trooper for a beat stick, or Honest for a piece of interaction. So Sang is just phenomenal in this deck. The other spell cards, Allure, Consistency, Heavy Storm, Typhoon. This deck crumbles the back row, so you have to have all the back row hate in the world. Foolish Burial finds you Dandy or Djinn, and then, yeah, triple Preparation, triple Pot of Avarice to outgrind, Brain Control to steal stuff, and double Decree again. Gotta hate out the back row. In the sideboard, we've got some interesting options. We got DD Crow. DD Crow is super good. You can reuse it with, obviously, Drill Warrior, and then it's kind of like a piece of interaction, like I said, that doubles as a tribute fodder for Black Illusion Ritual if you need to utilize it there. You got 2 Cyber Dragons for machines, 2 Vanity's Fiend. These come in when you board it in the Soul Exchange. I'm not super sold on these quite yet. I might just go up on the Djinn count. I'm also not sold on the Soul Exchanges. Yes, they do combo really nicely with Black Illusion Ritual, but if Oppression gets activated on your Black Illusion Ritual, it's like a -2 if you go Soul Exchange and then Black Illusion Ritual. So it's pretty bad since the monster isn't tributed for cost. So I'm not really sold on it quite yet because the card that this deck does lose to is Royal Oppression. Plus, if you Soul Exchange and then sack a monster to Black Illusion Ritual, sometimes they just don't have another monster for your Relinquish to take, which is kind of awkward. So this is kind of in the sus section. Relinquished kind of does what that card does already. So I'm not really sure if these 4 cards should be in the sideboard moving forward. But the rest of the stuff I do really like. I do like Double Thunder King. You can get hands where you like make Ancient Fairy special out Thunder King and then you have Honest. And it's like really hard for a lot of decks to break through that. And then you can also have hands where like just Thunder King Honest is like good enough for most decks. Lila, just for extra back row removal. Same thing with the Book of Moons. These are also good pieces of interaction versus opposing Vanity's Fiends and Christias. That kind of stuff can give you a lot of trouble. And then Solemn Judgment. This comes in against Monarch decks to protect your Relinquished after you've summoned it using Djinn. So, yeah, you side out the spell and trap removal. You get to bring in the Solemn Judgment. You can bring in the extra Djinn. You can bring in the Vanity's Fiends versus Monarch decks. And it's pretty hard for them to really put anything together. Extra deck straightforward. Let's just hop into the replay. This deck is super fun. It's super cool. You can kind of get to see exactly how the engine works here. We lose the rock, paper, scissors, but going second is kind of okay. We have a lot of ways to sort of break serve in this deck. We have a lot of ways to steal the opponent's opening monster play. And we have a lot of like really nice ways to sort of play into back row between the Lila, the Sangan, Card Trooper. That's like 3 really nice ways to play into back row. And then if they don't play a monster, we can set Raikou, which is pretty nice too. We also have Tragon Gores, which helps us go second. So there's a lot of really strong going second cards in this deck, which I really like, honestly. Not a lot of decks have that. So here, he sets a monster, he sets 2. I actually completely missed that he had set Book of Moon here. I didn't notice that at all. So, yeah, I didn't have that free information that he had accidentally revealed it. I normal summon Sangan, I attack, it gets booked. Now, this is an interesting choice of book. I kind of want to talk about the opponent's opening here. They have Allure of Darkness, and they have some monsters. You should always play Allure of Darkness here. You don't really care about most of this shit. If anything, you should also just summon the Gale. You have Kalut to protect it, and then if the Kalut gets used, then it turns your Blizzard into a +1. So I actually really don't like set Gale from the opponent here. It's a bit of an overcommitment. And additionally, you're forced to book pretty much just about anything that's going to attack your Gale here, which is a really awkward use of a Book of Moon. You'd rather not do that. Always gun the Allure. You want to find Whirlwind ASAP, especially if you're going first. Like, let's just say you draw Whirlwind here. It's so much better. You can summon Gale. You can search Bayou. You're up +1. You have a great tribute fodder for your Icarus attack in the Bayou. It's just so much nicer, basically, than not having this card or having this. It's not a dead card, but it's like a card that could have been a live card, if that makes sense, in the opening hand. Opponent's going to Allure. I just want to talk through that opening a little bit. I think he just, really, really messed with this opening. He goes Allure of Darkness. He banishes the Blizzy. He flips the Gale. And now the situation is not too bad for him. The Sangan's going to die, and I'm going to be able to search something, but, he's still all right. He still went first. It's like he went second, basically. That's how I see it. It's like he sacrificed his going first advantage by messing up the opening. Here he synchros off into Yugioh Guardian, which I don't agree with at all. I don't think you should synchro at all, but if you were going to synchro, you would make Armed Wing because you'd want to deal 2200 pierce damage. But yeah, making Yugioh Guardian, not really that great here. You know it's a Sangan that's set. You don't really want to steal the Sangan. He decides to change his mind on whether or not he wants a Sangan, which is fine, I guess, because we're going to win this game no matter what. We pick up Heavy Storm, which is just the nuts. We go ahead and heavy his back row. We Manju. We search for the Black Illusion Ritual, and we're able to Illusion Ritual, sacrifice the Jin, take the Yugioh Guardian, and that's all she wrote. This is very difficult for this deck to come back from once it doesn't have any back row. So he takes 4,200. On his turn, he has Whirlwind Sirocco, but he can't do anything. He could Kalut over the Relinquished, but then he takes burn, and then we steal the Sirocco, and we attack for game. So he has to just attack the Manju, and then just pass the turn. We draw Lila. We can blow up the Whirlwind, take off his advantage engine. We can attack over the Sirocco. If he has Kalut, then we just steal the Sirocco main 2. Main 2, we charge before end phase, because I don't want to end up milling both my targets off the Lila. We end up milling a debris target, which is very nice in the card Trooper, so we're pretty set up to do okay here. He summons Blizzard, tries to activate, but I remind him that we used the Jin to summon the Relinquished, and then he admits defeat, and we go to the next game. So that's kind of a showcase of how the Sweeper plus the Jin lock does a really good job of just putting the opponent in a really bad situation. Of course, had the opponent played the opening a little bit differently, had he conserved his Book of Moon, he would have been at a much stronger advantage. However, he might have still played into the Heavy Storm. We don't really know that. It's hard to tell. But definitely, you don't want to throw away cards if you're playing Blackwing. A tiny mistake like that can easily cost you an entire game with that deck. So I do think that that's something to keep in mind. Of course, we're going second again. And our opening hand this game is just as good. Honestly, we have Raikou to kind of poke at the back row. We do need to mill the Jin. I did side in the second Jin. I sided in the Battle Fader. I sided in Double Book. And I sided in the Lila. I just wanted as many ways to clear back row as possible. Book of Moon is kind of interaction for the normal summon. I sided out Quick Draws because they're pretty bad against Royal Oppression, which the Blackwing deck does play. I sided out one Debris Dragon. Again, pretty bad against Royal Oppression. And then I think I sided out Brain Control and one Pot of Avarice, if I remember correctly. Because I didn't want to pay life points with Brain Control. It kind of puts you in an awkward spot where you can die randomly. And you can draw Brain Control dead late in the game. So I just set the Raikou and I pass. If they summon a monster and attack, I'll blow up the monster, which is what I do. The reason I don't blow up the back row, even though the back row is the card that we end up losing, we're going to end up losing to if we try to play into it, is because if I blow up the monster, I have Heavy Storm and Space Typhoon for the back row. So I don't need to worry about the back row as much. I have outs for that, but I don't have outs for maybe a quick Sirocco pressure turn. So yeah, we blow up the monster, make 2 tokens. We have an insane mill where we mill a Jin and a Dandelion and 3 monsters, which makes our Avarice really close to live. And we pick up Allure of Darkness. We have a lot of plays here, potential plays here, but I actually just pass the turn. The reason I pass the turn is because just I want to be able to get value out of my Relinquished. Maybe we take a shitload of damage this turn. That's bad for us, but next turn we can go Ritual Relinquished after a Heavy Storm, steal a monster, and then have the Jin Lock set up and pretty much just win the game. So we don't really need to act. We don't really need to do anything. We can just chill. Don't need to play this Allure quite yet. Don't really need to do anything. We have all the stuff we need. They're going to summon the Boar of the Spear. They are kind of forced to attack both tokens to play around Caius. So we only take 1700 Pierce. We pick up Prep, which is going to be really nice if our Relinquish ever ends up dying. So we go for the Heavy Storm. We Black Illusion Ritual. Use the Jin that we milled. Special summon out the Relinquish. Steal the Sirocco. Now here, I want to make a point. The opponent has a Kalut in hand. They should use their Kalut here. So we attack this. They should use the Kalut here to protect the Bora. Because if they do, then... where's I going with this? Yeah, if they use the Kalut to protect the Bora, the Sirocco will die and will both take damage. But then he'll be able to attack over the Relinquished on his turn with the Bora, and he'll trade basically 1 for 2 kind of with the Kalut, which is a pretty good trade if you're him. However, he ends up picking up Heavy Storm, which allows him to out this anyway. But yeah, not using the Kalut there, definitely a misplay from the opponent. If he uses it positionally, he'll be able to attack over the Relinquished. I can only equip a monster once per turn. So since I had already equipped the Sirocco, if he uses the Kalut, even though the Relinquished won't die this turn, it'll die on his attack back on the next turn. So it'll be as if the Kalut killed the Relinquished. Anyway, he attacks over the Relinquished. We pick up Lila, which is a pretty decent draw. I just go for Preparation of Rites, grab Relinquish from the deck, grab Black Illusion Ritual from the graveyard, Black Illusion, sacrifice the Lila, special summon out Relinquish, Relinquish take Kalut, which this ultimately would have been the same thing had he just had an extra Heavy Storm in hand. It's just that he would still we would be taking a Bora this turn as opposed to taking the Kalut this turn, which would be in the grave more or less. It's more or less the same end situation, but it's definitely better for us that we are able to not have to deal with this Heavy Storm, more or less. So we're able to Allure, banish the Gores. We have another normal summon, which is the Raikou or the Lila here. We attack for 14. I end up setting the Raikou because I just want to be able to deal with a monster if he summons it. Here comes Knock on our Raikou, which is a bit unfortunate, but then he just passes a turn. We can summon the Lila, attack with both, 14 and then 17. We were actually pretty close to dying from any given point because of this brain control, but he dead drew another Knock, which is really lucky for us. We end up milling a Dandelion, which is potentially a liability because of the pierce damage that they could deal. Even Armed Wing, though, plus Kalut is not enough to kill me. They would need Armed Wing plus Kalut plus Bora. So they would need Blizzard, Bora, Kalut as the last 3 cards left in their hand to kill us this turn. So we're pretty close to dying, but we're not dying unless they have specific 3-card combinations or if they top deck Dark Armed, which is pretty bad for us. Opponent looks at his draw, which is Thunder King Ryo. He can summon the Thunder King. He can attack over the Lila. But on our turn, we can just crash the Relinquished, steal his Thunder King, and then put him in the bad spot again. He ends up conceding, and that's going to be that. I think the opponent played the game a little bit lackluster. Not lackluster, that's not the right word. I think he played it like a little bit scuffed. I feel like he could have done a few things a little bit differently and held his cards a little bit differently, particularly in game 1 with that opening. But the Relinquished deck is very scary. I think it's like a really solid deck, and I want other people to work on it. I want to put more time into it, but I'm kind of focused on other decks at the moment. And this is a deck that's always been like at the back of my mind, like something that I think has a lot of potential. You guys saw the power of Preparation of Rites and Pot of Avarice in that last game. If you can get some good mills, or if you can get like a Jin Relinquish lock going, it's actually a pretty scary or solid deck. So I'm not sure. I wonder what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you would do differently with this type of deck, or if you've played this deck before. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.